Welcome to Make Your Mark podcast, where guests share their experiences, insights, and tactics to help you accelerate your business. So building, scaling, and monetizing your business is made easier. And I will be your host, Suthar. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Make Your Mark podcast. Now, oh my goodness, I am super excited for this episode. Why? Because we're actually going to be changing the script on this one a little bit, right? And so please welcome to the stage, Charlotte. Oh my goodness, Charlotte, I am super excited to have you on the show.
Yay.
And so we had a little natter, right? Like behind the scenes. Right, off camera. And I'm super excited about this episode because I'm like, yes, this is what people want to hear. We're going to get really raw. We're going to get just real, and we're going to get vulnerable and actually talk about the things that people don't talk about. Right. And when you said, yes, let's do it, I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be exciting. Right.
But I've got no secrets.
You're going to be taking my secrets? Oh my goodness. I'll be checking on your social media. I've got some questions about that too. But before we get into all of that, I would love for you to share with our audience today about what your journeys look like in business, right? Because people tend to think, oh yeah, millionaires just come out of the blue, right? Just overnight. And we all know that's not the case. And so I would love for you to share what some of the ups and downs that you went through to get to where you are today.
Yeah, totally. I mean, where do we start? So if we go back maybe 5 or so years ago, so I think it's coming up to 5 years that I've been in business for myself. So before that, I worked in corporate consulting, so very much in technology strategy, very much working with the C-suite of large organizations. And to be honest, I really loved it at the time. Like, it was great. Like, I was flying to different places, I was doing cool stuff, like it was good. There was part of me that always wanted to do things faster. You know, how old was I? I must have been like 27, 28. And what I wanted to do in 2 years, in that environment, people were saying to me like, oh yeah, you know, you can hit X level by the time you're 40. And I'm like, that is a million years away when you're 27. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, regardless, I really enjoyed that environment. I had a great time, but it's a very, very, you would say fast paced, which I don't like, environment. Basically, you do all the jobs all the time, a million hours a day. And I got to a point where I got super, super burnt out. Like, so even though I really enjoyed it, I just could not sustain the level of work and output that I was putting out at the time, and living in a constant state of stress and survival. You know, stress comes in different ways, good and bad. But when you're constantly living in that state, regardless of good or bad, it has effects on the body, you know. And I was starting to feel, I was getting allergies to weird stuff. I was generally just feeling not very well. And if we think about it at the time, I'm going a little bit off tangent here, but what was really happening was, yes, I was working in this environment, but also I was training for Ironman triathlons. I was, you know, trying to do all the things in normal life. I was, you know, with clients or at drinks in the evening and events and all of that good stuff. So you're on the go from 4:30, 5 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night, and then doing the same thing again. So whether you like it or not, for me, that was not sustainable. And so at the end of 2019, I started to feel really unwell, and I ended up leaving corporate. I went on the sick actually for a few weeks, and I had experienced really terrible burnout where literally both my mind and my body just completely broke down.
Oh wow.
And so yeah, it was a pretty interesting time. And so I decided to leave that environment. It was obviously just sort of pre-COVID, we were going into that state, and I started a business. I established a business online, but I didn't start it yet. I didn't really know what that was going to be. I didn't know how to do it or any of that sort of thing. I was just like, right, I like this name, let's go ahead and do that. And I got on a plane to Mexico for 6 weeks,
Oh,
which
wow.
turned out to be, 5.5 months. And then I continued traveling the world for about 3.5 years, just nomadically. Um,
Wow.
yeah, which was a whole experience in itself, right? A whole different ball game. But
I'm surprised you came back and didn't
yeah,
just stay
I
out there.
know, I know. Oh, I know, it was a good time. And during that time, I was like, what am I going to do? So I started freelancing as a freelance consultant because that was just a natural next step. There were people in industry that I knew that reached out to me and gave me work, and that very naturally happened. And so I was able to work and sustain myself that way. And then what happened was that women, particularly in business, were coming to me because I had a lot of skills in technology, and it is an industry that there's a lot of jargon, a lot of
Right.
sort of there is a divide between men and women in a lot of the technology in terms of um, women not feeling as supported, I believe. In my experience, that's how my clients have come to me. So women in business would naturally come into me saying, we'd like to create this software solution, we'd like to do this in technology, can you support us? And so I created a business which enabled me to support women in building these solutions and giving them the support, which is what I've been doing for the past few years, which is great. So that's largely where sort of it's brought me until this year, really, where we've been doing really great work. And I was really it was really nice to be thought of, and I was awarded as number one woman in tech and startups recently by one of the magazines, which is really nice. I think to be recognized in that way. But really, the underlying theme of everything is the fact that during this time, what I was also doing was studying and learning more and more about regulation and the nervous system and all of that good stuff, and how I could avoid um, what happened before, right? How I could avoid that burnout, how I could sustain doing something I loved over the long term. And I have a background, I have a master's degree in leadership, and obviously I've sat within executive leadership for some time now. And I looked around me, and there wasn't many people, I've got to be honest, doing it well. And I don't mean doing it well in terms of their jobs, I mean doing it well in terms of feeling good while they did it. Right?
Ah, right. Yeah, that's most people,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And we're just
Um,
going through that day by day, just like turning the wheels because that's what we should be doing and just keep going and that's it.
yeah, absolutely. And I looked around my surroundings, and I realized that, I actually feel really good. And like maybe I wanted something here. And because I think that's the thing. I think that's the thing that we all forget in business, that actually it should feel good. Um, we shouldn't be doing something, I don't believe, for the sake of doing it. It shouldn't be at all about I mean, I'm all for making money, don't get me wrong. Like, but it shouldn't be all about that without anything else. Where people with, we chatted about it offline before, just very briefly, people with lots and lots of things going on in life, why are we giving up some of those things simply for business or to be leaders? And then if we are, why do we have to feel like crap about it? Like, I don't think so. I think there's another way. And so to circle it back, I'm we're starting a new company at the moment. We're about to launch it, which is all around high performance leadership for the long term and sustainably. So I'm super, super excited to support many leaders, both in corporate and otherwise, we've called it the achievement algorithm, which is cracking the code to sustainable leadership. And I really believe that we found the key to that.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I want to know more about that, and I know our listeners are going to want to know more about that before we get into all of that nitty-gritty, right? I'm really excited. Well, one of the reasons why I was really excited to have you on the show is because you're not married,
Nope.
you don't have kids, you're single, you are free to do whatever you like,
Well,
right?
sort of. come back to that.
Right? And the thing is, we don't have many single women in business. A lot of people that I come across, they're married or they're divorced, but they've got kids and all this stuff. And so, as someone that's single and somewhat free to do whatever you like, right? What did that look like for you when it came to business and your personal life? Because we did also kind of touch upon the whole dating life, right? And me being single, not married, not got no any kids, right? That is super difficult, right? What did that look like for you?
Interesting. Well, I'm interested to actually hear what's difficult about it for you as well. I think I'm actually at a point now where, I am with someone. I am in a relationship, but I'm not married and we don't have kids yet. So we have been dating for about a year. It's great, but I think my dating life certainly was not that way the entire time. Like, have I kissed many frogs? I think I have. Like, specifically, on this journey. And I think there's something to be said for that, because I think people have this notion that if you are single, of course, there are many challenges that we don't have that people might have if they're married, or that they have kids and things like that. But with that, I believe should come partnership, right? And with partnership, if it's done right, and the way that I see things is that it should be supportive and there should be balance. So, when you're single and you're running things and running businesses, and you are often, you've got other family members that you're thinking about and different things like that, often you don't have the support system at home that other people have, and certainly that I felt that a lot for a lot of years. I don't know about you. How did you feel about it?
I don't think that bothered me because I had my family, right? And then my parents, my brother, and all of that, my nan, that was there. So I didn't feel that about it. But what I did notice, and maybe you've come across the same thing, right, is when you come across anybody, right, and you tell them what you do, right? Now, this has been going on before I was even in business. Like, when I was a police officer, the minute they found out, oh my God, they used to run a mile, right? Like, then I told them, oh yeah, I'm an MMA fighter. They run a mile, right? And it's like, oh yeah, I own a business, I have a podcast agency, they run, right? And I'm like, what is going on here, right? What is happening where so many men, I guess, are in fear of women in leadership, right? That's what I was coming across and noticing all the time. And then I started making excuses, right? And I remember when I was a police officer and someone asked me, what do you do? And I was like, no, I can't tell them, otherwise they're going to run, right? And I kind of just like flogged them off and was like, oh yeah, I do bits and pieces, this, that, the other, and sometimes I work nights and all of that. And it got to a point, right, where I was working so many nights, right? He was like, wait, hold on a second, what are you doing at night, right? And he got the wrong end of the stick, right? Totally wrong end of the stick, right? And I'm like, no. And then I told him I was a police officer, and then what happened? It didn't last long, right? So this is what I was seeing and finding that is really difficult. And then I was like, oh, so now I need to make sure if I meet anyone that they're in business too, because they're the only ones that are going to understand. So I don't know if you found something similar.
At times, I guess, would be the answer to that question. I think it depends on the man, in my experience. I think that there are men that are going to be intimidated, and there are those that aren't. And that's my experience with it. I think, my partner who I'm with right now, he's not at all intimidated by it.
Right.
Like, he's not. He's successful in his own right, which is fine, but I don't think that is really the thing. I think it's more that, a man will be intimidated by success regardless of how much money he's got, at the end of the day.
Right.
it's 100% down to just what is his belief system, how is he feeling, like all of that at his core. And I think that maybe at one time I did feel that way. I did think that I was meeting people who I had that experience with, but what I did was then just change the way that I was looking out at things and just saying, have I got this correct actually, before I headed out.
Yeah, I mean, it was just ridiculous. Like, I remember I was getting phone calls, right, when I was living in Bali, right? Phone calls, and it'll be someone that I worked with in corporate years ago. And they would just call me up and they said to me, "Oh, I should have asked you out on a date years ago."
Mm.
Right? So I was like, "Okay." And it was like, "But I will never ask you out on a date now."
Hmm.
Like, why not? And they were like, well, through all your successes and everything that you've achieved and that you have a business, that I'm man enough to say that that intimidates me. And I'm like, wow, okay. But I was like, but you called me all the way in Bali just to tell me that? Like, that conversation didn't need to be had, you
No,
know?
I agree.
And it was just really strange. And so when this kept coming up, I'm like, something's not right here. Maybe I'm just attracting the wrong people, right? I need to go to the same places that you go to, Charlotte.
But there's something in that, honestly, like, my partner and I, we met at the gym, like a CrossFit gym,
Right.
so it stands to reason that someone that is in that environment would probably be more okay with someone who is also in that environment. So
Yeah.
like there is something I think to be said for that.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. So what kind of ups and downs, right,
Mhm.
have you been through, right? Because even though you're not married and don't have kids, right, there's still things that we actually deal with. We wear so many different hats, right? So tell me about some of the ups and downs you've been through, and like, have your family ever thought you were crazy doing what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And they still do. I bumped into my uncle yesterday at a cafe who incidentally was hiding from from too many people in his house. And I was like, what are you doing here? I'm trying to get some time out. And he's a doctor. He has a great career, but it's very much a mindset of you go to work, you get a job that is stable, and that's the way. That's how you are secure and safe. And we had a conversation yesterday, and because I've been doing a little bit of consulting work, and it had obviously gotten back through the family somehow. And he was just like, "Oh, I hear you've been doing a little bit of work for the man again," and I was like, "Oh yeah, a couple of hours." I
Okay.
was like, "But to be honest, that's a bit more tricky for me now." And then we got into this conversation of what basically he was like, yeah, but wouldn't it be better to go and do something like that because it would be safe? And
Mm,
to me, that's like, I mean, no one knows where you're at financially. No one knows anything. So they're always just assuming you're probably struggling in business, like if it's just one of those things if you don't come from that environment. And I just was like, oh, actually, I think there's much more safety in me earning my own money because I can control it. And
right.
it's just like, okay, you didn't believe me.
Oh, really?
Okay, sure. Which is fine. Is fine. I
Yeah.
think, I used to be a little bit nervous about those sorts of things. And then you just, well, for me, I'm just like, I
Yeah.
know what I know. I've experienced what I've experienced. That's different to other people's experiences. And I think we all just have to live our own experiences and truth, really.
Oh
But
my
it's
goodness.
funny. I've definitely had that with
Absolutely.
family.
So I love the fact that you laugh about it, right? Because a lot of people will take it to heart,
Hmm.
right? And maybe then start thinking, I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I should just get a job. So what keeps you going and really being solid in the path that you're on, knowing that you're doing the right thing?
Yeah. Um, I think, if I'm really honest about it,
Yes.
I have, at this point, I have a very much zero fucks attitude to most things. And I think but what we have to think about is how I got to that place. So for me, it's all about what I've done over time is I've done a lot of things that have um, almost regulated myself within any situation. So I can go into a little bit more about what I mean by that in a moment, but you get to a place where actually it doesn't really matter. You know,
Mm.
I think, like I said before, you know what you know. And I think I'm always looking at things through the lens of everyone's looking at things through the state of their own perception, right? I'm
Right.
looking at things through mine, through my beliefs, through what goes on in my mind, and other people are doing that through theirs. And so whatever anyone else is thinking, it has nothing to do with me, right? And vice versa. It's just what's going on for them and what's going on for me. So if someone doesn't believe in me, or they think I should be doing something else or have a different opinion, well, no matter really what I do or say, they're still going to think that way.
Right.
So it's like, what for me, it's what's the point in having that attitude? You know, what's the point in getting upset about it unnecessarily when I don't have to? But that's, you know, that's easy enough to say, isn't it? It's easy enough to say, don't get upset about it. But in practice, how do we actually do that? Because when something comes up for us, like we can easily get upset, you know? And so I think there's different tools and different things that we can use to definitely, you know, regulate our own emotions and systems and things like that as well. But I think fundamentally you have to just decide that it doesn't bother you, and move forward. What
Yeah.
about you? How do you handle that sort of thing?
Oh, so I mean, I kind of feel like a bit of a rebel, right? Because since I was at a young age, every time my parents told me to do something, it was like permission to go and do it.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's always been like that. And I remember, and I think that's why I gave up drinking so quickly, right? So when I was younger, you know, when you're young, you want to drink alcohol, right? Like that's the thing to do. Like you want to go drinking. And my parents made it open that I can drink at home. And I was like, oh, well, I don't want to do that no more because you give me
Yeah.
permission to do it.
Boring. Yeah.
Yeah, right. It literally was that. And so every time they didn't want me to do something, I'm like, I'm going to prove them wrong. Like my parents were horrified when they found out I applied to be a police officer, right?
Fantastic.
Especially in my background and culture. Like, you're not supposed to do that. You should be running the streets, chasing criminals, right? You need to be at home safe, cooking and cleaning, right?
Yeah.
Like, learning to be a wife. That's
Hmm.
basically what it is.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, you've now given me permission to go and do it, right? And I made it. And they were telling me that they're not going to let you in, right? It's not going to happen. They won't accept you. And when they
Mhm.
accepted me, they were like, oh shit, she's doing this, right? When I then turned around and said, I'm going to become an MMA fighter and kick the shit out of people because it's fun, right? They were like, no, you're not going to last. It's not going to happen, right? And did that for a while and then had
Mhm.
to quit because I did get injured,
Yeah.
right? But I loved it. It was awesome. And I actually remember my dad turned around and said to one of his friends when he came round to the house, and he saw the boxing gloves and the straps and you know the shin guards and all of that. And my dad's friend turned around and said, "Oh, I didn't know your son does MMA." And my dad turned around and said, "No, it's not my son, it's my daughter." Right? And they were surprised, like, "Okay, you allow your daughter to do this?" But then he turned around and said, "Oh yeah, I've got two sons." Do you know what I mean? Like all these little things. And I've noticed that as I was growing up, like there's certain ways as an Indian woman that you should behave. And if you don't behave
Mhm.
that way, right, then you're going against the grain. But I was like, okay, I love it. I want to go against the grain even more,
Mhm.
right? And the fact that I turned 13, wasn't married, that was a big issue,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to be 40 next
Mhm.
month in September,
Yeah.
right? I'm still not married, right? But I don't have an issue with it,
Yeah. Sure.
you know? So
Hmm.
all these things. So I just was like, yeah, it means I can be a bigger rebel. That's how I did it.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that in me as well. I think there probably is in most of us that are like doing this at, you know, a relatively high level or whatever. I think there's got to be I don't know. I think there's a rebellious streak in all of us.
Yes.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have a serious problem with authority. I'm like, please do not tell me what to do. It's not gonna happen. I will just like ignore you till the end of time.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I was younger and I was in a relationship and I was saying to my boyfriend, I was saying to him, I'm gonna apply to be a PA. It's gonna be awesome. I'm gonna be making this much money. And he laughed at me. I was like, what, you don't think I could get this job? And he was like, no, it's not that, but you don't like being told what to do. And a PA gets told what to do all the time. So you're not going to last very long. And I was like, oh, damn, yeah, that's correct. Like, maybe this isn't a good idea for me to go down this road, right?
Totally, yeah.
Right, so I hear where you're coming from. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this awesome business that you have, right? And you found this awesome way, right, to regulate a person's nervous system.
Yeah.
Now, I would love for you to share a little bit about what that actually means and how you got to this point. Like, what does it mean for other people as well?
Yeah, totally. So when I like to think about it like this, right? We all have goals and we all have visions and things that we want to achieve. And the reason that we're not achieving them right now is generally because we are not operating like the person that has already achieved those goals, right? So there's a certain version of you out there that has already achieved what it is that they want to achieve. One of the main things that stands between us, of course, there are our core belief systems and all that good stuff. This gets talked about quite a lot, right? In terms of how do we change our belief systems to align to where we want to go, right? That's not necessarily news. The thing that often doesn't get talked about, though, is what it takes from a nervous system perspective, and I'll talk about that in a moment, in order to sustain the next level of success. So you've probably heard many people will say things like, I self-sabotage, or, I achieved it and then I lost it, or, something along the lines like that. That's quite common. And there's a reason for that. And it's because as we achieve a new level of success, specifically as we achieve it quickly, right? And I'm all for quick success.
Right.
Why not, right? If we can get it quickly.
Right.
But it's like, as we jump to that level, our body and the complexity of our body and the nervous system we have, which is what switches on when we are in times of stress, and also when it switches off. Essentially, this is very, very basic level nervous system stuff that we'll talk about, but switches off theoretically when we don't need it, right? When we are resting, digesting, all of that good stuff. Now we can talk about the dysfunction of that, because that's how it works optimally. So if we think about things through this lens, for example, Zebra's out on the plane and she sees someone, going to attack her baby, nervous system will switch on. Sympathetic nervous system will switch on, right? She will get angry, blood will rush to her jaw so that she can bite. And that's a state of anger. In a state of fear, blood will rush to legs to make legs stronger so that she can run. So that's how it works, essentially. When that happens, and I'm getting a little bit into the weeds here, but I think it's useful for people to just understand how this works. Blood leaves the brain. It goes to either legs to run or jaw to bite hard, right? Neither of which are particularly useful to human beings who have the same exact system, but it's not really working for us in this day and age as well, right? So what works really well with Zebra is that switches on when she needs it, but it switches off very quickly when she doesn't. Right. So, for example, we might ruminate on something, and we might be saying, goodness, it could be weeks, months, years that we could be banging on about the same thing that happened, right? That we're still pissed off about. And right, that's what humans do, but animals don't act in the same way. So you could go up to Zebra 2 minutes later and say, God, I can't believe that, that bird went to steal your child or whatever, and she'd be like, what bird, right? She doesn't remember it. It's not the same thing. So it switches off, but it doesn't work the same way in humans. So we've got a very complex system, but it is not running and operating efficiently for us. And so to kind of circle this back to what we were talking about before in terms of how we, regulate ourselves to achieve the next level of success, what happens often as we reach the next level of success, our body will experience a threat. So just as it did with the zebra, where, she's experiencing a threat, nervous system or sympathetic nervous system activity will switch on. But in humans, often it stays on, right? So that's why we're constantly going around in a state of stress, survival, anxiety just a response to perceived threat that we can't do anything about, right? That's what's going on with anxiety. It's just our body fighting our own system that's trying to help us, but it gets greater. And so what we need to learn to do is switch that off and turn it down, so that we can stick at the right level of success. So mind gets the message that what we're doing and what we're looking to achieve is good. So as we move forward, some of the tools, things that we help people with is really how to understand, one, how this works really effectively and how it works and how we can tune and understand what it is for them and their goals that might be stopping them moving forward or sustaining where they are. Now I've gone on about a lot of different things, so if you want to stop me or have any questions, feel free.
So you're talking about how to basically switch on and off your nervous system, right? Like, doesn't that take years of training to do this? Because we're creatures of habits, and we have, I guess, all this trauma experience, bad, positive, all this stuff, that when we're talking about changing habits and changing the way our bodies work, it takes years, right? Because we've gone through decades worth of all this trauma. Isn't that how it works?
No, it takes minutes.
How is that possible?
Because okay, I mean, we're about to get into a lot of deep stuff. So we think it should take a long time,
right?
The way that we have been taught is steeped in sort of a history of therapy and talk therapy and psychoanalysis, which all has their place, right? But it is this notion that things are deep, that they're stuck inside of us, that we have experienced all this trauma, and therefore, because there's a lot of it, or because it's over time, it must take a long time to clear. But let me tell you, from personal experience and also from witnessing this time and time again, there are things that we can do to clear these things within seconds and minutes. So we don't have to go into deep traumas to clear these things. So we use or leverage, one of the tools that we leverage is a tool called rapid resolution therapy. So this is a modality that I have personally had many sessions of, and also have done a lot of training in and continue to do training in. I actually had another session just a couple of days ago because I just believe in it so much. I use it for smaller things now, but just to keep us optimal in where we want to go. So we leverage these consultants within our business as well. And rapid resolution therapy is phenomenal, and it is one of the modalities that essentially helps us to remove stucknesses, feelings of anxiety, fear, rage, any emotional turmoil in a really short amount of time. As in, like I said, like minutes in order to do this. And there are many ways that it works, but primarily it uses multi-level communication methods, which help us and communicate between the conscious and unconscious mind very quickly in ways that others don't, and is incredibly, incredibly effective, almost to the point where it's almost unbelievable. I think it's very difficult to describe until you've been through that experience and you've seen it, but I'm telling you, it works.
Wow. Okay, so this sounds like you are just waving a magic wand and voila, it happens, right?
Yeah,
Is this something that's new? How come like we haven't
yeah,
heard of this before and been told that it takes years to get out of a habit?
yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's relatively new in the sense that it's about 15 years old, as a modality or technology, I'd really say, because it's really that effective. I think we haven't heard of it because, although the founder, Dr. John Connolly, I'd say, is, an incredible mind, for this, like beyond anything else, is potentially not a great marketer, you know?
Oh,
There's
okay.
other things, aren't there? I mean, fundamentally, it's sales and marketing that get these things out and messaging, to the wider public. And I think generally people that come in to train in these sorts of skill sets come from more of a clinical background, for example, not trained in marketing, not trained in sales. And so things like this go under the radar. I came across it, through, another coach who I follow, who, Andrea Crowder, actually. So she, I was listening to her podcast, maybe a couple of you, I don't know, whenever it was.
Mhm.
Um, and she mentioned this very passively. And I'm just really curious. So I started looking it up and just followed sort of, where that went, and then went through all of the experience myself and was like, okay, this this is it. This is the one, Um,
So what
yeah.
kind of results have you seen from
Mhm.
it then? I'm curious
Yeah. Well, I'll go into specific sessions and specific use cases, but overall, where I am right now, I think as a person, I am pretty like leveled out. Like,
now.
like, regardless of what's going on, and there have been some serious things happening this year, I find myself in like a state of, I don't experience really low lows anymore, but I don't experience really high highs. It's more like a really mellow state. It's really just like we take it, we can handle it, it's okay, we deal with it strategically, and if I find that I'm, for some reason, something's riled me or whatever, I'm like, huh, that's information, that's a tab open, like, and I have the tools to clear it now. Um, which is a really nice place to be. And quite honestly, like I find myself happy 95% of the time, even more. And I think
Right.
that's it.
I mean, I've known you since the beginning of this year, right?
Yeah.
And you are very kind of easy come, easy go.
Mhm.
Like it is what it is, right? And I don't think I've seen you in a state of panic or bother or anything like that. Like nothing does actually get to you.
Yeah. Yeah, it rarely does now, honestly. And like I said, every time it does, it's a really good opportunity to apply these tools and be like, huh, there was something left there. Let's just get it. Let's fix it. Let's close it down. Um, and so I'll give you a couple of like the first session that I ever had with RRT.
Mhm.
Although I was making good money and I had money in the bank account, I could not, and I'm sure that actually that people, your listeners some of them will relate to this. Financial stress is one of the biggest stresses that people have.
Right.
But I couldn't open my bank account app without having a constant state of anxiety, right? I was constantly worried that there wasn't enough money. I would wake up in the morning and have anxiety for, I don't know, like I would wake up in a state of anxiety and, um, then have to spend time regulating and doing all the things and all of that. And it didn't make logical sense, right? My mind was stuck on growing up with not very much money and having these situations. And, the software hadn't been updated, essentially. So I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to book one of these sessions. So I found an incredible practitioner, and I booked a session with her, and it was wild. I had this session, it was 90 minutes or 2 hours, I don't know, something like that. It felt like 20 minutes. And it was the most fun session I've ever had in my life, right? It was just all think this picture, think this color, breathe in like this, do this thing, make this shape, like make these noises. We were like laughing the whole time and everything. Absolutely incredible. The next day, and ever since then, if you said to me, I will give you whatever you want, Charlotte, if you can just feel that feeling for me, I'd be like, I'm sorry, like I haven't got it. It doesn't exist. And it just, we dealt with that. Everything improved there for me. And then, as we've mentioned, my dating life was not plain sailing, I had some real stuff to clear there. We did, a session around that. Again, now I find myself in a very, really nice, loving relationship, all of that good stuff.
Mm.
We're doing the work to elevate ourselves to the next level of success, and I'm very much of the notion of I'll go first, I'll go first and let me see if it works, and then like let's pass it back to clients and other people and things as well. So there are a couple of examples for me, but I mean there are some absolutely wild ones, that I've seen other people do where they've cleared people of intense, PTSD that they've had for 7 years and night terrors and all sorts of things. It
Wow.
cleared within 40 minutes. It's
Wait, what?
mental, absolutely
40?
mental. Yeah, hands down, seen it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. Like this is insane. I kind of feel like we've stumbled onto a secret here,
Yeah,
right? Like
100%. And I feel like I'm behind the scenes being like, hey guys, I'm like trying to shout about this secret, and everyone's like, it's not possible, surely not.
right.
And I'm like, no, listen to me. And I'm like up against a glass screen being like, this is real. And yeah, I am trying to get the word out about it, and quite frankly, like, of course we would love people to work with us, but I'm like, just go to whoever that
Right.
has these skills and just, get done what needs to be
Oh
done.
my goodness. Okay, but does that mean like do you have to keep having to do this very often, right?
No,
So no, you don't? Like
no.
it's not like an everyday thing or every week thing. Like how often do you need to do this?
No, the session I told you about was about 18 months ago. That I had. Like I said, I had one yesterday because something came up through my other business that was a bit like, oh, this feels a little bit uncomfortable.
What came up?
Yeah, I'll tell you, it was a potential legal situation, which is very normal in business, right? To have these things come up, but what's not normal, not normal, it is normal, right? Dysfunction is normal. That's the issue here.
Oh,
That
okay.
dysfunction in humans is normal, right? So I was feeling like this anxiety about it, even though, I was feeling, it's these things happen. I was like, this doesn't feel great. And I was like, do you know what? Let me just bottom this out. Because what happens when we remove anxiety and we remove stress and remove fear is that the energy that our body was sending to do those things is then released, right? So it's released to be able to enable us to be more creative, strategic, logical, um, all of all of the things that we need to be successful in business and in life. So now I'm like, okay, I got it. Like, system was updated. We don't feel any anxiety. We don't feel anything. I'm just like, what needs to be done? How do we need to handle it? Let's just get it done. Honestly, and like, those are the things. So I don't need to go back and do that again.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So then I guess it'll be the next thing that comes up. Then you'll get another session, right? Or you'll have to get over that. Oh my goodness. Okay. And so I guess if there's someone that's gone through so much trauma, like there's going to be quite a lot of different sessions, right, that they're going to have to go through.
Well, that's the amazing thing about it, right? That's the amazing thing about the mind is what the mind is really, really good at doing is grouping things.
Hmm.
So the mind is constantly looking to be effective, but also to conserve energy all the time. So what it is really, really good at is, like I said, grouping things. This is the same as that. So for example, you might, we might have a woman who is in a restaurant on a date, and she starts acting really strange. And you might say, well, that guy seems lovely. What's the matter? And it's like, oh, well, she was recently on a date and she was assaulted. You might say, huh, okay, right. Or it might be that something happened to you when you were younger, and the guy or whoever was wearing a yellow t-shirt. And so somewhere in your mind, as you see something of a similar, but probably not same at all situation, mind is going similar equals same. So as it's doing that, it is also doing it as we are updating that software. Similar equals same. So it's scanning all the time as we update it to say, let's close this, let's close this, let's close this. So actually, it's not that we're doing one every single time or that we need so many. It's that we might have one session and cover, close 20 tabs. Or you might have one that closes, however many. And that's how the mind works. And that's why it's so beneficial and effective.
Oh my goodness, like this is exciting. Okay, I want to start looking into this a little bit more myself. Like this is really good. Now at this point, I think people are probably so flabbergasted with what you're saying, right? Mm-hmm. And they're going to want to try it out.
Sure.
And a little birdie told me, you have a free gift for everybody, right? So what is this free gift and how can it help them?
Yeah, totally. So I actually want to give you two things, one that's mine and one that's just independent that will really help people as well. So the first one is a process. So it is a rapid resolution therapy based on that process that I've created for people. So it's an audio download.
Right.
It's a private podcast feed. So as you go and sign up for this, you'll get to go through one of those processes that will help you close some of those tabs. So if you're experiencing some emotional turmoil right now, maybe there's anxiety, stress, fear coming up for you in whatever situation, you can use this time and time again and go through that process, and that will close those tabs for you, right? So that's absolutely
in a few minutes, just by listening, it will do that for you.
Absolutely. 50 minutes, we've got it covered. It's fun. You should find it really fun, engaging. Just give it a whirl. And just let me know. Send me a DM over on Instagram. I'm at Achievement Algorithm on Instagram. I'd absolutely love to know just how you get on with it. So that's there for you. There's also, I mentioned the founder of Rapid Resolution Therapy, Dr. John Connolly. They run a free solutions, what they call a solutions call on a Monday. So you can go and attend that. It depends where you are in the world. In the US, it's great for you. UK, hours are a little bit challenging, but there are sessions you can attend where he will just go through and support people with different issues for free on that call, which is really amazing. So if you want to go
every Monday,
so just to, if you want to get a taste, if you want to just get some help or support with something, or just check it out, that's there for you as well.
Oh, that is amazing. Oh my goodness. I'm like blown away, Charlotte. This is super cool. And as soon as we get off of this, I'm going to go and download that private podcast that you have, and I'm going to go listen to it myself and let you know if you've cured me, right? I will let you know. Guys, like, reach out to Charlotte, right? Get these downloadables. Go ahead and try it, because this is like mind-blowing that you can change your habits, your thoughts in just a few minutes. And all this stuff that people have been telling us that it takes decades to do to kind of get out of all these old habits can be done literally instantly. Like, this is awesome. Charlotte, thank you so much for coming onto the show. So many golden nuggets in such a short amount of time. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed it, Kay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to Make Your Mark podcast at www.makeyourmarkpodcast.com. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get this and every other episode that comes out. We have lots of great stuff coming, so make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And thank you in advance for all the reviews and comments. I appreciate it so much. and I look forward to serving you in next week's episode.